Okay, here we go. Cool. So this week, week 4, just wanted to sort of this week go through a little bit more structure than what it was last week that I mentioned out in the card about how the sessions would run. So just a really quick 1-minute update from everyone in the team individually. So I'll call you guys out when I'm ready. And basically just a 1-minute update from week 3, what you achieved in the week, and just sort of a little bit what you've been up to, basically. Then after that, we'll go into assignment 1 and we'll just talk about a few things, and obviously there may be some questions around that as well. So all for questions, and then we'll go into just a broader context of questions around things that are maybe outside assignment 1 as well. So that's the plan for today. Is all that cool with everyone?
Perfect.
Sounds good.
All right, sweet. All right. So Tara, let's start with you. How's your week 3?
Week 3's been okay now that it's come down a bit. Yeah, so I just did some, I did some read-throughs of the outlining and script work that Michael and Robert have been working on, and I've been working pretty extensively on getting assignment 1 organised and sorted out. That's pretty much been my week.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, good week. Alex, what about you?
Yeah, I'm still working on drawings, developing skill sets to get the characters up to scratch, so they don't look like stick figures. So yeah, so it's a good thing. Like it's stretching my abilities. Put it that way. It's a good challenge.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Are you enjoying that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's well, whenever you do something that's a little bit outside your comfort zone and ability, it's always I think 2 things: enjoyable and also scary. So,
yeah. No, I totally hear you. Okay, cool, awesome. That sounds like a good week as well. Min, what about yourself?
Yeah, try to keep building up the Rampai skills. Yes, read through the Rampai's manual and watching the tutorial from the YouTube. And I try some of the features other team members talking about on Discord. And one of them was input the player's name. So use the name to put it on the script. Actually, I tried and it works.
Awesome.
And the other feature is I just suggest for the extended feature that playing the visual novel on the mobile.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so it works as well. So it can be one of our extended feature, I think.
Yeah, definitely chuck that into an extended. So yeah, don't put that as a minimum. But yeah, a nice thing to aspire to potentially do if you guys get time. Yeah, that's really cool. Good idea.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Robert, what about you?
So I guess from last week's chat, Michael and I sort of concluded on the actual structure of the story. And then from the scenes that we had sort of created, we decided to divide them up so we could all write, sections of dialogue that sort of getting on each other's sort of feet on it sort of thing. So we sort of just split the workload. I also sort of did a bit of work with Photoshop, just altering different images to try and generate some backgrounds. And I too just did some light concept work as well for some of the character designs, just to help along.
Yeah. All right, awesome. Nice work. And last, Michael.
We, as Rob mentioned, we finalised the overall structure of the story. Aside from that, I ended up starting a slightly more detailed version that could potentially be put in the story. So rather than sort of simple outline, just actually started doing something a bit more meat on it.
All right, awesome. Nice work, guys. Look, that's really good. It's good to see you guys working and obviously dividing up tasks, which is really good too. So it's nice to see there's been a reasonably good spread of work between everyone there as well. So that's really good to see so early on. That's great. So just wanted to touch on assignment 1. Obviously, that is due on Sunday. So that is kind of a bit of a priority at the moment to just make sure that all those parts and sections are done and that everyone's had input into that as well. So just wanted to touch a little bit of base on how you're going with that, if you're stuck on any sections, if you've got questions around any of that stuff.
I have questions. So I think I only have 3 sections to go. So I'm scrolling through quickly. So I'm a little bit stuck at the moment on the features and the kinds of things we would be doing to validate those.
Do you want me to run through that first and then we'll go to the next one? Yeah, cool. So with that sort of stuff, I think around, especially it's with assignment 1 there, for minimum viable features and for extended features, it's going to really need to be the best way to kind of resolve these and kind of flesh out what they need to be is to actually just have a big team discussion around it and just make sure everyone kind of has input into that, because everyone will have different technical knowledge on what's going to be implemented, and that will help work out what the testing might actually end up being as well. So make sure there's a big group discussion around all that stuff as well. The best way to look at validation testing is that you have a feature, right? So a feature in your game, 2D console game, right? Yeah. Right. Visual novels, sorry. So there, a feature inside your game would be like design and graphics is a feature in your game, okay? So it's going to be a little bit around how are you going to actually build that out and make sure that those things are actually sound and working the way they need to be. So you might have a particular background that needs to complement a particular scene inside your visual novel. So a testing feature around that would be is when scene 2 loads, the design or background that loads along with that is X image. That's a way to test that it was successful. The way you do failure testing is you literally flip that on its head and say it failed when that didn't load properly.
Yeah.
So you'll find that a lot of, if you get the easiest way to do it is to do your positive ones, because it's always easier to know this is how it's going to work and not anticipate how it's going to fail. But then you do how it's going to work, and then you literally can just negate those and figure out a failure for what those ones would be.
Okay.
Does that kind of clear that up a little bit?
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, cool. So the how many as well, because there's also a little bit of thing around there as well. You want to get to get all the marks in that section, the best way to go about it is to try and have at least 4. We don't go over 6, 4 to 6 positive ones and 4 to 6 failure ones. So overall, no more than 12 for one feature.
Okay.
So
Alex,
just one question with the fail and the success things, is that can that be like the same elements? So the background, it can be like the background can be a positive, like if it succeeds and fails. Is that two different points, or is that just one?
They're 2 different.
Okay.
Yeah, so you would actually have like a subheading saying successful validation and dot point out what that is, and then you would have another heading saying failure validation, and then dot point those ones out.
So essentially, we're saying with six things that'll either pass or fail, we have 6 elements. Is that what am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, I think so. So let me just say it one more time, and then if I still don't touch on what you're getting an answer for, just tell me. So for one feature, you need 6 positive, 6 tests that will show that the feature's working, max, minimum 4.
Okay,
and then you need another minimum 4 or max 6 of tests that show when it fails.
Okay, so just so I'm crystal clear here, I am an idiot. So
that's okay.
This in my head. So if you use that example of the background, okay. So it would be 6 different backgrounds. Would be the 6. Like we have 6 different backgrounds, and the test would be this background fails or succeeds. That's one test. The second background fails or succeeds. That's the second test for that one feature.
No, that's only one test. So it would need to be different tests. So to make this easier, rather than saying backgrounds as a whole, extend your feature out a little bit and say things around, what could be a good way to actually word it? I'm struggling to get a title, but it would be things around, you would talk about your background changing, you would talk about positioning of objects in a room. So layouts, actually, scene layout would be a feature. So then you have a lot more different things that you can test around that because you've got different things happening in each scene.
So the location of the character in that scene would be a test on that one scene.
Mm-hmm. Does it position in the right position that you intended it to be in? Is the players where they need to be? When a speech bubble comes up, or however you might want to, if the player's thinking something, does that speech bubble pop up in the right location? Does it then cover something in the background that the player needs to see?
Yep.
Those sorts of things. So that would be almost a failure. Like if the thinking bubble come up and put it over the top of an option that the player has to then select, that would be an indication that bit of that feature's failed because you've lost an option now for the players to then pick because they can't see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that'd be the same with the buttons to move on through the actual story. If they're covering spots if the buttons actually aren't on top of each other, but they're separate, so you can actually click on the buttons.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. Sorry, guys. I'm an idiot.
No,
So.
don't be sorry at all. These are actually
Good.
really good questions. Yeah, they are, Tara. They're fantastic questions. Because it's a bit of a weird section. It's like you have to really think through stuff that is potentially going to go wrong. And you'll find that a lot of this testing, that it's just put it down to show that you've thought about it. A lot of this testing, you may not actually do the testing. It may not actually be like, viable to actually do the testing. And you'll find that when you do develop and do periodic tests of your game, you'll test things that you didn't even think about as well, because that becomes as an intuitive process as you're developing as well. So just get it as best as you can, I
mean, a lot of these things, like one of the features that we're talking about is like the choices that the character can make that shape the game, and that's a valid feature. Yes.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
So I mean, we're going to be testing that just as a matter of course as we sort of work through working out if the programming is doing what it's meant to be doing.
Yeah.
Playing the game and stuff like that. So
that's right. Yeah, exactly right. And don't be afraid to, if it doesn't make sense to just point out a actual prescribed test in a feature that you've got, don't be afraid to kind of maybe put words around it and put a 2 or 3 line sentence around how you might test that as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be this, black and white prescription of, I'm going to do test A, B, C, D. It could mean that there is a different way that you're testing that, and it's not feasible to talk about it in a dot point form. So feel free to change it up a little bit as well. Yeah. Visual novel is a little bit of a hard one, because when if you're just building like a website, it's really easy because you just build a login feature and then your tests are, did the username and password work? Yeah, exactly. Did the password work? That's another one. If it didn't work, that's the failure, So visual novel is a little bit harder to kind of come up with that stuff. But the idea around it is that I'm going to do a review period for assignment 1 for you guys. So 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Friday is the time that I'm going to review. So just make sure that that's all ready to go for me. Once it's ready to go to review, just give me a ping saying at Echo it's ready to go. I really do take liking if you just give me a direct link to the document. That would be great. I can go find it myself, but I do just prefer clicking a link out of Discord. And what I'll do is I'll review that. So the goal would be for before Friday 9 a.m. before you ping me to say to review, to have that all fleshed out in assignment 1, so I can actually read through that. And if there are things that are a little bit not right or need some changing, then I can give you feedback. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So with the minimal features, we have like the background and the characters is one minimal feature. And another minimal feature would be, say, the person typing their name into the actual game and that appearing on all the different locations through the game.
Oh, yeah. So like player customization almost a little bit. Yeah, that's great. Like that.
And would another one be the music?
Yeah, most definitely.
Music
I think you can add music in as a feature. Yep.
A minimal feature, yeah.
It would be minimal, yeah. It wouldn't really fit into extended at all. But yeah, minimum, because you would the minimum, because you would have, so you put that as a minimum feature, but then you set a minimum amount of music, and the music would also include sound effects. So if you opened a door, maybe there's a creak when the door opens or something like that. You know.
I think we currently have music as a minimum feature, so it's some semblance of music. I think sound effects as by themselves are an additional feature we put in.
I bumped sound effects for Min's mobile stuff as a extended.
Okay, cool.
I can move sound effects up into.
Oh, I guess fine. I'm just curious.
Now I currently have choices and a range of endings as two separate features. Is that okay, or do they need to be the same?
I would just have it as the same, and make it an extended. So have the minimum to be, and this is not a feature you have to list, but just have the minimum that you have one ending to your game. This is a suggestion, by the way. One minimum ending to the game, and then have an extended feature where you could have two options of an ending.
Okay.
But then any kind of good kind of visual novel, the whole point of visual novel games, or for me anyway, is the fact that I get to play and make decisions, and that means that if I play a second time around, I'll probably have a different outcome.
It can be different, yeah.
Exactly. So think a little bit about that one, and think of how maybe you could actually implement a different ending with two different endings as a minimum feature in your game.
I mean, the plan is at the moment that we have 3 endings planned.
Okay, cool.
So.
I think that's doable. I mean, you guys obviously, the job around that is obviously the storyline needs to fit that. In terms of the development, I don't think that would be too heavy from a technical standpoint. It'll just be more the storyline, and then obviously you've got to, in assignment 2, you've got to do a bit of a flow of how your decisions work. So it'll just need a little bit more work there. But I think it's a good idea to have multiple endings. That's how I see a visual novel anyway.
Great.
The other thing that you can put in, and I just figured out what I've got like an example one up here. So the scene, it would be called scene transitions, not scene layout. That would probably be a better way to put it. And just from a past visual novel, which actually got through approval with me at one point, so obviously I've accepted it at one point, is a minimum feature is point and click functionality for interacting with the environment. So simply implementing point and click feature of decisions and how the user will actually, or the player will actually play your game is actually a minimum viable feature that's acceptable too.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Validation testing around that's a nice one too, because that is a little bit more black and white. So
yeah,
that's a good one to have in there. The other thing that you can look at doing as well is to have an interactive menu at the start of your game as a minimum viable feature.
I like that.
But that also can be an extended feature as well if you want to. But that could also be a twofold too. So you could have a very basic menu that you produce as a minimum, and then have an extended feature off the back of that to make a more advanced menu. So does that help out a bit with that stuff?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. For me, at least.
So yeah, just flesh sort of them out as well. And then we can sort of, I'll look at it again on Friday and give you any last minute stuff that you need to flesh out a bit more around that.
So extended features, we were thinking, talking around some ideas for extended features, having a puzzle in some of the scenes. Would that be an extended feature?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, definitely, because that's obviously there's a lot more work around that. So you've got to put that into your story. You've got to do all those sorts of different things. You've got to build that out. You've got to test it. So yes, that's an extended feature. Another really cool extended feature is to be able to save and restore your game. That would be a cool extended feature, so you don't have to play the whole thing all the way through. What else would we have? I can't think of any more at the moment.
We have like a choice of avatars, like you could actually create your own character.
Yes, that's a really cool extended feature. Yep.
I'm not entirely sure if we'd want to maybe necessarily include that particular feature, even though it is a good idea. I feel like in our group currently, one of the biggest obstacles we're going to have is actually character design, just for like the various creatures, even for like the character that chooses to sort of lead the story. I think if we had some kind of customizable feature, it would just it'd make the task almost exceedingly difficult for the, I guess, the potential that this group has at the moment. It's still a good idea though.
Yeah, it's a good point. A good point to raise, and obviously, and this is why I said that when you do minimum viable and extended, it should be like a group effort to consolidate down on what they are. Because these things pop up where like someone might think that, oh yeah, maybe that's like a little bit too out of reach. The one thing though, if you do put something into your extended features to remember, is that just because you outlined it in your extended features, you don't have to implement it. And you might get to a point where you implement all of your minimum. It's week 9, let's say, you do a really good job and it's done in week 9. But you've got 3 weeks left, but you've got 3 extended features to choose from. So then you would probably pick the other 2 other than the players one if that was going to be a little bit too hard to implement. So you can kind of, if everyone still wants to put that in there, that's okay for it to be in there, but it's just a reminder that you don't actually have to build it out as well. So it doesn't mean that just because it's in there, it's got to ever go in there. Does that make sense?
Yep, that makes perfect sense.
All right, sweet. Because the reality is, guys, and it's not to crush you or anything, but the reality is you probably won't get to your extended features. And if you do, you probably get to maybe one of them, max 2. I don't think I've ever had a group that's done all their 3 extended features because it just, all the other... But challenge accepted. Okay, there you go. But yeah, it's just because of all the extra stuff you've got to do, like all the Spark Plus and the assignments are really heavy and stuff. It's just like, don't overkill it. Just get your minimum in and actually have something done at the end of the study period, because that's a much better feeling than having rushed and been stressed through the study period just to get all of that stuff done. Yeah. But yeah, if you want to take on the challenge, I'm happy to be here to help to mentor you through that. No problems at all. All right, cool. Any other questions around assignment 1? I did post up a massive thing about the when section, so give that a read in the announcement.
Which was super helpful because I was feeling a little bit stuck on exactly
what to do
with that.
Yeah, it's a crazy section, that one.
So sorry about my barking dog in the background.
Oh no, that's okay.
So I'm working on the risk section at the moment. I need to have both like project risks and group dynamic stuff as well. Both. So
so you need to have
each? Is that
exactly 3 of each. So you've got 6 marks there. Look at it as 1 mark per risk and 1 mark per group dynamic challenge. Yeah.
All right.
Do you get the difference between a risk and a challenge that you're going to outline there?
I haven't read that.
Did you want me to run through it quickly?
Yeah.
So the best way to look at risks and challenges is that a project risk is something that is going to be detrimental to your project and the outcome of it. So it's going to be something that's going to really throw a spanner in the works that might mean that you don't actually get to your end outcome. So therefore, you need to kind of preempt maybe a few things that might happen and have some kind of mitigation strategy that if this was to happen, what would you do in that instance? So a really good one that everyone uses is you lose a group member. You lose your lead developer. So then in that case, your mitigation around that would be, well, then the next person who's probably best technical skilled would need to upskill to that level to be able to mitigate that. Or a second strategy would be, then you look at your features and start to de-scope down to the current skill set that's left in the group. So it's a risk has a mitigation, whereas a challenge is something that won't stop the project. It just means it might make the project a little bit harder to accomplish. So an example of that might be that you aren't all familiar with using RenPy. So you're going to need to do some upskilling and some learning in that. So that's a challenge at the moment for the group because you don't know how to use that. But it's not going to stop you because you're going to learn about how to do it.
Yeah.
You get that now?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So don't go too crazy because it is 1 mark per risk and per challenge. So just outline what the risk is, like a brief, and then the mitigation should be probably more heavier than the description of the risk itself.
Yeah. Okay. And then it's just like, then the only thing I've got left to do is the when section, and you have already posted about that, so I'm good.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah, so anyone else that has questions around any of that stuff around assignment 1? Or you're all good? All good? Yeah? Okay, cool. All right, cool. So really the only action item that I'm seeing out of this mentoring session is to just meet as a group and just nail down what your MVFs and incentive features are.
Yep.
And everyone have a go at chucking some validation testing in there. So I want everyone to have a go at what validation testing should be for each feature. It's a good thing to just have a go at. Plus it'll mean that you'll get those 6 dot points that you kind of need to get to as well.
Yeah.
So really that's the only thing. And then just getting assignment one as completed as possible before 9 a.m. on Friday. Give me a ping. And then I'll review your document and leave a bunch of comments in there and stuff for you. Does that sound good?
That sounds fantastic.
All right, awesome. I'll leave you guys to it, so you all go back to your night. I need to go make some dinner. Yeah, Alex, go. Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to plant a flag to the group as such, right? One of the things that it seems that there may be a little bit of tension and a little bit of perception of aggression within the actual chat groups, right?
Mm.
When we need to all be conscious that when we're asking questions, we're not challenging people. We're just asking questions. Okay, we need to be fairly open and not take things personally. Because
Absolutely.
if we start being defensive and feeling that we're being encroached upon, and I'm all for being pointed out and called out if I do something wrong, right? I'm very open, very, very approachable. But I think that if we're going to be working together as a unit, and this is going to help us going out into the real world when we actually do real life projects, that we actually understand that it's not an attack on anyone if we ask a question about something, okay? And we're not challenging people inside the actual group. So we need to possibly be a little bit conscious of leaving our egos at the at the door when we come into it, and work as a team and as a unit, because it's going to be very hard 10 weeks if we don't do that. And we're going to be getting on a lot better. And once we actually clarify and actually solidify what our roles are, and we've got support roles in there, we'll get through the project a lot better, I think. I think if we work together as a unit rather than working contrary to our drives, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%, Alex. That's really spot on. Really spot on. And, you know, good on you for actually speaking up and saying something as well. It's always hard to be that person that does that. So really nice emotional intelligence there, which will also help you when you go out into the workforce. It's great. I do want to...
My job is working in projects.
There you go.
As leaders, as members, I understand. I've been through all the worst project teams you can imagine. I've been through some fantastic ones. I've seen it all, and I just know that it's a lot easier if people just leave their egos in check and don't take things personally, and understand that people are asking questions.
I feel like this conversation might actually be related to a discussion that was posted, or I guess the questions Alex was posting earlier today on the Discord that I personally responded to. And I'd like to just say, Alex, like, I'm sorry if I made you feel like there was some kind of aggressive intent behind that response. There truly wasn't. I just wanted to be as direct as possible with my response, just to sort of clarify, but also, I guess, in a sense, to defend my position, I guess, in the group that, you know, you're making some statements that there wasn't any real clear leadership or direction within the group. And I was just simply trying to reiterate just some, in my opinion, like just some very clear landmarks and some established things that had actually happened, just to sort of show that we did have indeed some direction with the story and with the general ideas that are being passed around. And, you know, we were getting some kind of traction, and there were resources that were provided that, you know, we're building on.
Yeah, I'm not targeting you, Rob. I'm not targeting you. I'm just saying that we just need to work together with respect to the leadership comment. What I was saying was that when we actually, when we started, the actual idea started to shift quite a bit before we actually started pinning things down. So it was confusing to me as to where the lines were being drawn between whose tasks were doing what.
Well, I can agree with that as well. And in my response, I believe I addressed that. I referenced the structural template that I created and put on the Trello, the storyboarding, and the scripting that Michael and I had sort of exchanged between each other to sort of really elaborate on those things. I guess one element of, I guess, maybe perceived tension, which I don't believe there is any there, but might be between Michael and I and the direction that we wish to take the dialogue at the moment. Now, I know that we probably both want to address this, and this would probably be the best place to do it.
Sorry to cut in, Rob. I know that Echo probably has another group to get to soon, or because we've gone over time at this point. So maybe this is something that we should talk about on Saturday at our meeting.
Well, if that's how you guys feel, then that's totally fine as well. I just thought.
I don't mind personally, but I'm just conscious that of time pressures.
Yeah, that's fine too. I just want to simply say to Michael, just before we all split, that I actually have reread over the script a few times. I just wanted to be truest to the visual novel styling, but I think you've actually defended your points quite well. I checked out some of the games that you referenced and the styling in which the dialogue's presented. Yeah, and I think I had initially envisioned something a little bit more basic and simple, but I think that with your flavoring and style of writing, I think it's definitely applicable to this assignment. I would like to sort of maybe just say that I do think maybe it can be condensed down just a little bit, but I still like the general direction you're heading in. I think that your contributions to the group have been fairly excellent as well. Just with even the naming of the characters, like I really like the names you've picked actually. So yeah.
Cool guys. I might just jump in really quickly. It's all cool. I'm fine. I don't have another group to go to. I didn't really want to disclose that you are my last group for the thing, because then we do start a precedent of going over time. But this to me is important, so I'm actually okay to just hang back 10 minutes and listen, because I think that it's really good. And I actually really like the openness that you are bringing this up in front of me as well, because this doesn't normally happen. It happens behind closed doors, and then I get told at week 6, week 7, and I'm being told to deal with it then. Okay, so it's really good to know that this is good, that this is happening, and it's really good to see that there is open communication there. Not going to lie, you can feel a little bit of tension in the room, but that's okay. That is group work. That is in an online environment. It is completely normal what you're actually experiencing right now. And groups, the reality is groups don't always gel together on the first click of meeting each other. It does take a couple of weeks to understand what each other's boundaries are, how people interpret text, those sorts of things. So just a little bit of reminders and just some little things from me. And you probably already know this, but it's just nice to hear a reminder once in a while. When we are talking in an online environment, especially through a Discord channel, the way we do approach how we're talking to one another is very, very important. So just even small things like little words, as I said before, or as I mentioned before, avoiding those little tiny things comes across a little bit condescending, like you didn't read my previous message. Using pings correctly as well, so not pinging too much as well, because then it can come across a little bit like you're being hounded. Just those sort of small things that kind of come across as well. And then as well with these conversations too, is if you feel that you guys need to just have a 10 or 15 minute discussion when you all can get together outside of your weekly team meeting to kind of resolve a small issue that you picked up, just jump into the voice chat on Discord and have that 10-minute discussion and take away the text of it. Yeah. So sometimes it's important to just go in and actually just jump in and have a conversation rather than using text to resolve an issue as well. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Obvious, aware, that may not be a thing that you can always do, but it's an option that you can look at as well, okay? And so, look, this will kind of fizzle out. Week 3 and week 4 is quite hectic. There is a lot to do. And what I'm seeing here is it's not really aggression or like true tension. There is a little bit, but it's just more passion that I'm seeing, that I think that you all actually envision a really awesome outcome for the project. And I think it's just a little bit of like conflicting ideas around that passion. So I would look at it from that perspective. And that will kind of just ease your mind a little bit that, you know, there is a little bit of not too much tension going on. It's just more the passion coming out on the project side of things. So that's my 2 cents worth. Please, if there is discussions through Discord that you are having in a text environment where, you know, you're finding you're kind of not getting anywhere and you want me to jump in and just help out and diffuse a little bit of stuff, more than happy to help you. Just at me, obviously. And I can just jump in and just direct a few questions and comments and just direct the conversation a little bit if you're feeling that you're having a bit of trouble communicating with one another. But I really want to highlight this is normal, and I think it's okay, and it's great that you're all bringing it up at a really early stage. So well done. All right.
There you go. Well done, guys.
Does that sound good? Yeah, this is good. This is really good. I'm glad I'm hearing about it in week 3. Please don't do what a group did to me and then do it in week 12. And then Spark Plus was really bad, and then I had a whole bunch of admin to do. So please don't do that to me. I really appreciate you bringing this up now. So it's really good. All right. Look, really normal. I do have to duck off though because I am hungry. But yeah, if you do need anything, please at me on Discord, and just remind her about assignment 9 a.m. so I can review for you guys. And really looking forward to what you've put together. It does sound really cool. So looking forward to understand the whole thing from a better perspective after reading this other one.
Perfect.
All right. All good. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Go have a cup of tea, everyone.
All right,
Have a good night.
Hey, guys.
See ya.
Thanks,
Right.
See you, everyone.